Hello, and welcome to the Mr. 50mm YouTube channel. I'm Mr. 50mm. You can call me Chris. In today's video, I wanted to ask a question. Did you see the Fujifilm GF 500mm F5.6R LM iOS lens announcement or any of the pre-release reviews? Are you excited to finally get a long telephoto lens for the GFX system? Well, okay, I wasn't really either. But what if you wanted 1.33 stops more light and you wanted an arm workout? But also, you don't really get 500mm, you get 400mm. Well, do I have the setup for you? I present to you the Eye of Sauron, Canon's legendary 200mm F1.8L and a Canon EF 2x teleconverter. Like I said, it doesn't quite get you 500mm, you get about 400, but with the teleconverter on there, you get f3.5 wide open. Some more speed. So, before we get started, I do want to say this is not a sponsored video by either Fujifilm or Canon. I own my GFX 50S, and this is my personal 200mm f1.8L. Let's get into it. The question is why? But really, why not? Well, I haven't tested the 500mm Fuji lens. Of course not. As of the time of this recording, it's not yet been released, and Fujifilm hasn't sponsored this video and offered me a sample to review and have a look at. I mean, if they did, I wouldn't say no. It sounds like it'd be fun. So, what am I to do with my currently new to me GFX 50S and an urge to try something kind of insane? Well, I thought, let's have a look and see if the 200mm f1.8L will function at all with my kind of cheap EF to GFX adapter. And we'll check whether or not the image circle actually covers the full size of the larger GFX sensor. And it turns out that it did. I mean, it vignetted, of course, but it still covered the whole image, or the whole sensor. Even more of a surprise, the autofocus tended to work just fine, at least as fine as the contrast detect AF system that the GFX 50 uses. So the adapter AF voodoo magic seems to be working well. And you know what? I decided, well, if it works just with the regular 200 1.8, let's give the 2x teleconverter a try. I'm using Canon's 2x teleconverter version 2. And again, it was to my surprise when I put the teleconverter with the lens on that the image circle continued to be covered and AF was still relatively well maintained. It seemed to work pretty well. I didn't actually notice so much of a speed difference going from not having the TC to putting on a teleconverter. Now, this is all fine and dandy, but it wasn't until the next day when I decided to actually go out and explore the world with my new 400mm f3.5 lens. Now, you might have noticed that this combo, it looks a bit chunky, and it's actually quite hefty. You see, Fujifilm's 500mm only weighs in at a very reasonable 3,175 grams, roughly 1.375 plana, roughly 0.687 noct. Basically, it's a feather. This monstrous lens combination actually weighs in at 3,365 grams when I include the EF to GFX adapter. That is a bit more than the Fujifilm 500mm. That is a staggering 1.682 noct over 3 plana. Now, combine that with the actual weight of the GFX 50 itself, and you get a combination that is ridiculously heavy. It is 4,245 grams, or just about 9.36 pounds, and it looks utterly insane. That is a heavy, heavy system, and I got quite a good arm workout using it. Now, aside from wanting to try this crazy idea, I saw that the MSRP for the new Fuji lens was a bit pricey, around 3,500 USD. Now, I'm never gonna buy it, so I thought, would the Eye of Sauron, Canon's Eye of Sauron, actually be a cheaper option? And would it still provide reasonably good IQ? The answer is yes, for the first part. And for the second part, I don't know. I've not tested the new Fuji lens. I mean, I assume it's gonna be hecka good. Like, basically the MTF graft, I assume, is gonna be perfect. So this janky setup optically probably isn't gonna be better. However, you can actually find the Eye of Sauron going for between 1,700 to 3,000 USD. And probably the one that you're going to find is going to be in better condition than mine, because mine has seen better days. It's got marks all over it. It's got scratches. I've used this quite a bit. So, when you combine that with the 2x teleconverter, and you combine that with the EF lens adapter, depending on which one you get, you might actually be saving quite a bit of money. I noticed that the 2x teleconverters typically tend to go for around $150 to $275, depending on which version you got. There are 3. I've got version 2. Now, even if you take into account getting one of the brand name EF to GFX adapters, that's another $200. So this is still potentially cheaper than the GFX 500mm lens that they're going to be releasing shortly. Now, you also get the bonus of getting a bit more light. Like I said, this comes in at f3.5 just about, which is, more light than 5.6, but I admit less reach. How's it to shoot? And are my arms broken? In short, pretty great overall. And my arms are only broken a little bit, so that's good. Now, I do want to say, I'm not giving this combination the greatest of odds. I'm using the oldest GFX camera, the 50S, which means it's contrast detect only for this setup. Again, I've also put a teleconverter on the 200mm, and I'm using a randomly branded AF adapter, so the AF algorithms in there might not be the best ones. In spite of that, I did find that I was able to achieve focus a lot of the time. The hit rate was pretty solid. Now, I do admit I was shooting static and or easy to track targets, your hungry squirrels, your static and or slowly swimming duckies, and the occasional boat. So, not the toughest subjects. Now, I also want to bring up that with the 400mm on the GFX, with the crop, it's closer to 320mm, given the 0.79 crop. It's not a huge amount of reach. That being said, similarly with that new 500mm lens, when you take into account the crop, it's about 400mm. Again, some reach, not mega reach. Now, when it comes to looking at the images though that the lens cranks out, I was extremely happy with the shots. Shots tended to be around wide open to f4.5, and sharpness was really good. I also found that contrast was pretty surprising. Now, not really sure why I thought it was surprising, but I did. I think it was because when I use this combo on Canon DSLRs, it's always superb. But I was expecting that with the larger format and with the non-optimized AF module, I was expecting that things would be less sharp due to misses, and I was expecting that the image circle just would kind of let me down. However, aside from some relatively harsh vignetting, it did not. So I was really happy overall, image quality wise. Now, that being said, carrying around the lens was another story. Holding it and shooting it for short durations is actually not terrible. But after around 15 or 20 minutes of continuous use, I actually realized that this hand, which I use to support the camera, was kind of hurting. Now, additionally, when I'm walking around with the lens, I never really put the full weight of the setup on the neck strap there. And that is because this is a very heavy setup, and I'm not super confident in the lens mount's ability to take the weight if, like, you know, I were to get jolted. I'm sure that it'd probably be fine, but I'm not going to be the one to find that out. So when I was walking around shooting the lens or moving from location to location, I would always be supporting the lens with this hand. So I'd kind of tire out. Now, that being said, when I do my photo walks, I don't only usually carry one lens. So I did pack this lens up as well to switch to other options. However, I did notice that just due to how round this front element is, that when I packed it in my bag, I would generally feel the lump on my back. Additionally, this is a heavy setup. So I did, you know, at the end of the walk, usually end up with a sweaty back. So there's that. That being said, I do really love this combo, and I think it's worth carrying it around when I know I have things to shoot with it. The last thing I want to talk about with regards to shooting experience is stability. This combo has no image stabilization. None on the lens, none on the body. Again, I have the GFX 50S, so there's no IBIS. So I was always worried about my shutter speed. It was a top priority when shooting with the lens. And as a result, I tended to push the ISOs up whenever I needed to try to just keep the shutter speeds, you know, at 1/500th or shorter. I do imagine if I had IBIS, I would probably have had a little better hit rate, and I could have handled putting that shutter speed a little lower. That being said, if anyone is able to try this with the 50S2 with the IBIS, let me know how it is. It sounds like it'd be a great combo. Now, you know, when I'm shooting this on top of just trying to keep my shutter speeds high, I would also just take a couple of shots, rattle them off, and, you know, just try to get myself in a comfortable position since it's so heavy. So I tended to lean on things, sit down if I could, and or just lower my stance. You know, as you would. But all in all this summed together, shooting experience with the 200mm, it was solid. Again, just got to get over the weight and how big this front bit is if you're packing it in your bag. Recommendation, and is this a viable alternative to the new 500mm lens? Not really. This is very heavy. Like I said, it weighs roughly 1.682 knocked with the teleconverter and the adapter on, so it's kind of weighty. The autofocus is not optimized for the GFX system, and it does vignette a lot. And while this lens right now is technically cheaper than the pre-order prices for the new 500mm, it was not cheap when this lens came out. When the lens came out in 1988, it cost 3,000 USD. Now, you have to remember, again, it's 1988. So in modern dollars, this lens cost 8,000 USD, or roughly 10,900 Canadian maple units. Now, with that being said, this was an expensive lens when it was new, and it only had a production run. Well, it had a long production run of 1988 to 2004, but I'm gonna guess partly as a result of the price and how big and how expensive these were to make, it only ever resulted in around 8,000 units being produced. So that is to say, the 200mm F1.8L is pretty rare. That being said, if you ever get a chance to try out the 200mm 1.8L, whether it's on GFX, EF, RF, Sony, or whatever lens have you, or whatever system have you, try it. The images that the 200mm is still cranking out are excellent. Not excellent for 1988, excellent for now. I really think that this lens is awesome, no matter what system that it's used on. And that's really the crux of this video. I really just wanted to talk about the lens and how awesome it is, how awesome it still is. Now, I know the setup is a bit crazy, it's a bit unconventional, but it was a lot of fun to use, even if it broke one of my arms. But let me know, what oddball lens and camera combos have you used or tried? What do you think of my alternative to the 500mm Fuji lens that's coming out that only reaches 400mm? And as always, until next time, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye!